Episode 250 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the holiday time edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, gentleman and a scholar, and someone who raced in another race at Indianapolis here a couple days ago. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Doing great, Phil. Of course, I did do the Freedom 100 with Racing Nation TV there, running that one. So, it was a fun event. Tony Stewart was supposed to compete in it, but then had some last-minute sponsorship obligations come up. So, unfortunate that he wasn't able to do that, but glad to be in the event. Actually qualified for the main feature this time. In the past, haven't been able to make it out of the heat races, but this time made it out of there. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, pretty fun night on Tuesday night doing that. So yeah, ready to get back into it and kind of reflect on the whole year here for this and talk about all the other news happening in the world of racing as we close out 2024.
Yeah, this episode, as of now, will be the end of the season 5 for us here at the GSP. And with that, we're going to go through all the news. There's been plenty of news on the Formula One side, also major news in NASCAR, IndyCar, and then even in the World Rally Championship. So we'll get into all of those news items and updates, and then we will talk about the NFL Week 15 and give a little preview Week 16 for me in fantasy with two number one seeds, so we had a week off, and then going into this week trying to go in advance and then see what happens with our actual teams. I mean, the Niners are done, so it doesn't really matter. And then we'll review the Cup Series season and everything that went down there. And holiday wishes for 2025 as we have a brief break for the holidays prior to returning fresh and ready to go in season 6 in 2025. Josh will let us know what happened in the Freedom 100, and we will call it a day. So I think the first bit of news that we should lead off with, nice boots on CT there. But anyways, yeah, the Red Bull team, which has been fish lips and fish lips only for many years, it became more obvious here in 2024 when Sergio Perez basically became a non-factor after a few races. And that led to, even after giving him an extension, after that extension came on, I think Checo did not score a podium the rest of the season. I don't know how they think 2 or 3 top 5 finishes the rest of the season. So he was basically an unmitigated disaster, akin to like a Lance Stroll, or insert any number of Red Bull driver development guys who got ran out the door for less. Or they did better than that and they still got, they did better than that and they still got ran out the door. But because Sergio Perez has Carlos Slim's unlimited bank account, not, apartheid Clyde money, but, still a lot of money. He he had kept that deal and he was going to bring it in $15-20 million, whatever it was, a sponsorship, and that's why he still kept a job. Well, long story short, after and reading a story on motorsport.com in terms of the least productive teammates in the history of Formula One in a season, one of the worst performances ever. Sergio Perez has been let go, or he's whatever. They announced it as he left Red Bull, but let's be fair, they got rid of him. Because there was a whole bunch of machinations in terms of trying to figure out contracts, figuring out sponsorships, and how this is going to get moved and that. In the process, instead of going with Yuki Tsunoda for a year, knowing that more than likely Yuki Tsunoda wasn't going to be a part of their program in 2026, they decided to move Liam Lawson up after, I think, a handful of races in Formula One, and he'll be Fishwip's teammate in 2025. And then that also leads to who will be the second driver for Racing Fools or whatever the hell, insert name here, Minardi, Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, Visa Cash App RB, etc., whatever the fuck they're called. Sounds like it'll be, or looks like it'll be Isaac Hadjar, who, based on the Fittipaldi brothers, especially Enzo Fittipaldi, who was in the Red Bull driver development program and had performed very well. Isaac Hadjar was 5th or 6th in the pecking order, and they got rid of everybody else ahead of him and kept him. So we see where Sergio Perez kept the ride in part because of the money, and now we see that Red Fool kept a driver development driver that was bringing money. That is, yeah. So I'm watching it, and I think my feed is like a minute behind Josh's feed. So you knew about that interception. So terrible decision there by Herbert, especially when you're down 21-10. You want to go and at least go in a halftime with a one possession game. He keeps on trying to force it to Palmer. He was late on that ball, and that's part of the problem. And it's either that or you have to go over the top with it. He lasered it, and they cut it off. So yeah. I mean, plenty of different ways to go about this, Josh. I mean, but Sergio Perez, we talked about it for a while, and we talked about it ad nauseum on Grid Talk. In terms of his performance, and we've seen it over the years. They've taken driver development guys and ran them into the ground and got rid of them. Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon being two examples. Daniel Ricciardo deciding to leave on his own accord because he knew he was going to be the cuckold. And then they decide to call him back, and he sucked. I mean, there's other drivers going back through the past better part of 20 years of Red Bull driver development where they've ran in open wheel series and they've proven that they're good and they can win, but then when they get to Formula One, they haven't been able to do the job to whatever metric that One-Eyed Marco and Karen Horner have for drivers. And Their measurement is Sebastian Vettel and fish lips, which might be the most unrealistic measurement of any driver that you can have, because those two guys one was one of the best ever, and the other guy is working in his to be one of the best ever. He's third in all-time wins. He's like top 5 in championships, whatever. So there's a lot going on there, and to meet that standard is generally unrealistic. But Red Bull sees fit right here to go and replace Checo Perez, Josh, and they're going to go with a guy who has a handful of races, which sounds just like, well, not as much like Danny Kvyat, but it sounds a lot like Alex Albon, what was situation a few years ago, and plenty of other guys that have been involved in that program over the years. So what does Red Bull really think is going to happen here? Granted, Liam Lawson has been considered one of their best prospects for a long time. He's taken the opportunity and the thought of the opportunity as a chance to just go and be in the main team. But it's been basically the worst ride to have in Formula One for a long time. And are we really going to see anything different in 2025?
No, it's a hard question to answer because it's a big role to be the number 2 guy at Red Bull and have all those expectations placed on you, and if you're not winning, or you're not constantly in the points enough and not helping the team in the constructor standings, then there's a lot of pressure on you to go out and perform. And that's kind of what happened this year to Sergio Perez, and we not surprised that we're talking about this now. We kind of hinted toward this. That seemed like that was the rumor going into the end of the year, that he was going to be out, and nobody, of course, surprised by that. And after the performance that he had throughout this year, just on the numbers, just wasn't enough for Red Bull, and definitely hurt them in their ability to compete for the constructors title there. So it's a relatively short leash. I mean, I could see him, like if he does get fired or something for Liam Lawson, he'd have to perform. I'd have to say he'd have to perform really badly for him to get fired, in one season. But I think at least we could see him there for at least 2 years in that ride before Red Bull really makes a decision there. But it's gonna be tough, for him with only a handful of races. And like kind of like the Alex Albon situation that they had a few years ago. We'll see how that works out, and if they decide to go out and replace him eventually. We'll see. But it's for Lawson, I mean, it's an opportunity to showcase what he's made of. Of course, they feel like he's got more raw talent than Yuki Tsunoda to put him in this car and be teammate to Max Verstappen next season. So I guess the goal for him is to be able to consistently finish in the points, and then hopefully challenge for podiums, and we'll see if he's good enough to be able to go out and compete for a possible win or two here or there, and everything. So it's going to be tough, because we saw, from that car, it probably had a lot more potential in it, but for whatever reason, Sergio Perez just wasn't able to get what he needed out of it, whether he just wasn't good enough or the car was just really bad compared to what Verstappen was able to do. So, there's definitely an opportunity there for Lawson to do something with that ride here in 2025 and in the future. So unfortunate for Checo Perez, but yeah, I think we saw that coming for a long time, despite what the contract had been in the middle of the year, where he got extended, and people are like, "How can he have gotten away with it like that?" But now it's official, and we'll see what Liam Lawson does next season as a teammate to Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, I've been outspoken over the years on this show, but then also the in terms of the um in terms of the um just the Red Bull driver development and what they are. Um and I mean, Liam Lawson, he could end up being the best Red Bull number two. I mean, I think we could say Weber was the best number two, and it's been tough for anybody to really meet that standard outside of. God, she's so hot. But in terms of like Ricardo performed to a level for a little while. But I mean, the expectations, they're going to expect him to be getting podiums and competing for top fives out of the box in a car that is built specifically for Max Verstappen. That's one thing that Red Bull has not decided to correct, in a sense that they don't want to make a car that can be a little more neutral and compliant. And there's a reason why McLaren is able to compete with both of their drivers. There's a reason why Ferrari has two drivers that are able to compete, and Mercedes as well. Red Bull, I don't think, has ever been interested in that, and it hasn't hurt them until this past season. When you consider 2025 is more or less a neutral rules package, it's going to be kind of just a continuation of what we saw in 2024. We have there's a good chance that Red Bull is going to have some difficulties in their productivity next year. I mean, we know Phillips will win races. We know Phillips is going to compete for the championship, trying to do something that only Michael Schumacher has done, which is win 5 consecutive world championships, drivers' championships. Lewis should have, but he had 2 different chances where he could have had it. But either way, I don't understand the thinking, in the sense that you could go and take a flyer on Tsunoda, knowing that more than likely they're not going to keep him anyways. He could have, outside of him going and like finishing second in points to Phillips winning the championship, they wouldn't keep him anyways. You could go and put him in there, let him run a year, give Lawson a year in the junior team to learn. Probably put Hadjar in there. You'd have 2 rookies, and then kind of treat it for what it is. But that's Red Bull for you, and so it really, I really don't get the point. In terms of taking the potential aspect of it, I think they're trying to hope for the best in that sense, and see what really happens there. Hadjar getting the ride, yes, he finished second in F2 points, but a couple of years ago he was not that high up in the mix, and basically got the got the bump because of, his nationality and then the money he brings to the table. So I don't know if that's, I mean, I guess it's just like any other team, but are you really maximizing your potential at Red Bull by going about it that way? But then, to be fair, who cares? I shouldn't care that much, but I don't think Isaac Hadjar is going to be a complete waste of time. I don't think he's going to be as bad as what Ricardo was. Are they going to be setting the world ablaze with their productivity next year? Not really. They're going to be basically competing for sixth in the constructors next year. That's best case scenario, really. After the top four teams, it's really kind of a open door for whatever the heck is going to happen there. So, also Valtteri Bottas goes back home in a sense. Is going to be the test and reserve driver for Mercedes. So they're bringing back someone who had some of his most formative years of his career, won the vast majority of his poles, won all of his races at Mercedes, was a great teammate to Lewis Hamilton. Interesting in the same time that Checo Perez gets let go, in a sense that a guy who basically was in a similar situation a couple of years ago and was let go for a young driver, albeit one that had 3 years of Formula One experience at that point, and was a Mercedes junior and was well thought of and had won the F2 championship in Woody Russell. They ended up making that change after inconsistencies for Valtteri Bottas. But now, when you consider Mercedes is fourth in the pecking order and they're preparing for 2026, I think Valtteri Bottas plays a big part in their fortunes or possible fortunes, not only for 2025, Josh, but for 2026 as well. And at the same time, he keeps himself in the mix going to race weekends with the specter of Andretti Cadillac being out there needing two drivers. Obviously, the prevailing sense is an American driver will be one of them, whether it be Colton Herta, whether it be Jack Crawford, and then they need another driver, and they would need a veteran more than likely that could actually be a leader and bring that experience. Now, you have Checo, who brings a boatload of money and has been in Formula One for a long time. Or you can go Bottas as well. That's another option. And then there are probably other people that we haven't thought of yet that might be in play. But for Valtteri Bottas, considering how bad the season was, or the last couple of seasons have been for him at Sauber, essentially to get an upgrade, even though he's not going to be racing on a weekly basis, this might be the move that he needs to get himself back on the grid in 2026.
Yeah, for Valtteri Bottas, it's an opportunity, like you said, for him to get back onto the grid. But then also, he can also be kind of a mentor to both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli next year, as Russell basically is going to be the number one at Mercedes, and Antonelli going to be the rookie there in that number 2 role. So we'll see if with Bottas, if how well he's able to perform as test driver and reserve driver and help the team in their goals next year to be competitive. So for Bottas, yeah, it keeps him in the loop in Formula One. He doesn't, have to. I mean, he won't be racing, but he'll still be available and potentially. I mean, it could lead to a drive even next year. We'll see how that goes with him and the opportunity to stay in the loop and have the potential drive at Cadillac in F1 once the team starts in 2026. I think it's a huge opportunity. It shows that he's not done in Formula One. He's talking about what his options might be next year for racing, and so at least this. I mean, he may do other stuff. There's talk about him potentially doing IndyCar, the Indianapolis 500, as well. So I don't know if that's still on the table for him with this reserve role. But now that this has been announced, now Bottas can help the team be better and help them with the experience that he has, and certainly the fact that he's coming back to Mercedes shows he's willing to draw him back on that past experience, especially with Lewis and how he was a teammate there, and use that experience to help both Russell and Antonelli next year. So it opens that door, and then the just like I said, the opportunity at Cadillac, and potentially even other rides that might open up in 2026 if he ends up not going to Cadillac and decides to go to another team.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we're gonna see as we move forward, and how much that Valtteri Bottas plays a role with this younger driver lineup now at Mercedes, especially with Kimi Antonelli, who is a well thought of young talent, but very raw, and only 1 year of F2. Won a few races, but had his moments too. So it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do as a rookie, and with what kind of production he can put out there in 2025 as a rookie. You have that news. They announced Ferrari. Ferrari's gonna go and have their reveal the day after they have that, they have the overall launch for everybody. The 75th, inaugural season launch at London to mark the 75th anniversary. Yeah, so then they'll go and launch their actual car the next day at Fiorano. They will, Lewis will come around, and in the start of the year to drive, and there will be their limited amount of time for Lewis and Charles Leclerc to get used to their new stead before they start at Bahrain. You have during so the F1 Academy, blah blah blah. Yeah, so Teo Porcher, Zane Maloney leaving the Sauber Academy, not surprising. Porcher, who was dovetailing in IndyCar, Zane Maloney, who I assume with his money probably could on a friend who moved to IndyCar. Well, I was mentioning, so test and development driver for Teo Porcher for Peugeot, and then and then Zane Maloney now is in for Formula E at Lola Yamaha Apt. Carrie Schreiner, second positive F1. She's the part of the World Team Brand Ambassador. Okay. Lena Buller and Young Car. Yeah, so Nico Hulkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto, and then they signed Emma Feldmeyer, whoever that is. So Bianca Bustamante going to GP or the GB3 championship. Interesting. But my phone is yeah, so dinner harder with the next step being the Formula 3. All right. So good for her, at least moving up in a sense. They Dorian Pan will stay with Mercedes. Alicia Mowski, whoever she is, Red Bull. You have Carrie, that. And so there's Leah Block will stay with Williams, and okay, and then I don't know, Phone Academy with Logan, and so we'll probably see, that's for 2024. We'll see when they go and list in drivers for 2025. But all right, so we'll move forward into the NASCAR news. First, didn't put that there, but congratulations to Ryan and Gianna Blaney on their wedding here a few days ago. And Ryan is on top of being one of the best drivers in NASCAR and all the other things that Ryan Blaney's got going, the legitimate most popular driver in NASCAR. He also has one of the hottest women on the planet, and he gets to procreate with her for the rest of his life. So God bless YRB. But in terms of driving and racing, two teams that didn't know for sure what their full circumstances were going to be, 2311 and FR Front Row Motorsports, won that preliminary injunction, which I think we've been talking about for 6 months, 5 months, whatever the heck. I don't know. It seems like it's been going on since the summer, but I know it was August or September when the NASCAR pulled the stunt with the charter deal, and those two teams decided they were not. Oh, now we're doing flea flickers, really? But that's how bad the Chargers defense is. We're running flea flickers. I mean, what's next? We're gonna go and do a fake kickoff into Hank Basket too, so we can really throw it back to the old days of the New Orleans Saints. Yeah. I can't hear you. Can't hear you at all. So, in terms of for me, with 2311 FRM, what it means, they're going to be chartered teams in 2025. They will have their two full-time cars that they've had the last couple of years, but then on top of that, third cars with charters purchased from SHR. FRM was the one that bought the first charter from SHR when they said that they were going under, and in May they made a deal, and that was for a third team. They signed Gagson. That was before we saw that McDowell was going to leave for Spire. So then his decision to leave for Spire opened up the 34 car. Now Todd Gilliland is going to be driving that car, basically swapping his team out, taking his team, and they'll be the 34. whatever car number Noah Gragson is. I think, like I mentioned before, and he mentioned somewhere along the line on the socials, like they're going to go with a 4 car. But we'll see what happens with that number. And then Zane Smith, who got let go from Trackhouse and also from Spire, has money and whatever they have the money that they've had on the 38 car. The vast majority, all these different sponsors they've got going on, and then of course Bob Jenkins, the money he has going on, and they could probably fund that car, and it looks like Zane Smith will be coming back there. Then in 2311, there was issues with contracts for Reddick and for Bubba Wallace. Granted, I think Tyler Reddick wouldn't have had a problem finding a job. Even Bubba Wallace, as much as people want to shit on him, because the sponsors um, one of the more popular drivers, one of the guys that actually gets talking.
I can't hear you now.
So, yeah, that's then you have Ryan Terps as well, who's joining that organization. So we will see what happens with that. But what is
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
what is that? All right, how about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happened there. Yeah. Okay, were you asking about what I thought about the injunction?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the injunction there was, I mean, it's a good decision, obviously, for the judge to rule in favor of 2311 and front row. And yeah, a lot of people, I mean, I think us included, we're talking about focusing on the drivers and the sponsors opting out of the clause, right? That, oh, well, they had the 30-day especially for Reddick's contract. There's 30 days after the lawsuit or the injunction, whatever, that they had to go ahead and make him a free agent. And because of that, they decided seemingly like that was a factor in the court ruling in favor of 2311 in front row. So a lot of people, focusing on that. But Matt Weaver actually made a good point. Just looking at this now on his X page, saying that they're not focusing enough on the decision that the release clause in the charter is anti-competitive and a violation of the law. And quote, in practical effect, the question before the court is, can a monopolist require that a party agree to release the monopolist from all claims that it is violating the antitrust laws as a condition of doing business? The answer is no. And then later, Weaver says, to me, this is something to monitor. Do other teams join the lawsuit if the 10.3 lawsuit release clause is both deemed to be a violation of antitrust law and not enforceable against teams that signed the 2025 agreement? So I think that's a good point that has been brought up in this. So with the release clause and all that, yeah, I think there's definitely a good chance that this goes further and probably could go in favor of 2311 and front row there. But at least now they get to compete in 2025 as chartered teams, and the sale for Stuart Haas goes through for them. Of course, NASCAR on the other end, I think they've gone ahead and said that by granting the injunction and having to force the sale from Stuart Haas to 2311 in front row, that this causes irreparable harm to NASCAR, which I haven't been able to look deep into that one quite yet, but I don't know, that seems like a BS claim there, that NASCAR trying to do that and go try to make the the lawsuit go back into their favor as they try to appeal the injunction there. So we'll see where this goes, but definitely it's a step in the positive direction for for Denny and for Michael Jordan, and for Bob Jenkins as they go about this lawsuit, and for the lawyers involved on that side. So we'll see what comes out of that next year, and what kind of change, if if they do rule in favor of 2311, I guess what would the outcome of that be, and what NASCAR would be forced to do? What would they have to adjust the charter, or go and create a new charter, or make additions to satisfy 2311 and front row and the law? Because if they are found to be in violation of the antitrust laws, then then they would have to completely remake the charter agreement, and then probably make that current one that the teams have signed for 2025 and beyond to be a null and void. And then they'd have to come up with a new agreement for everybody to sign with that would be more fair to all the teams that are involved in the Cup Series.
Yeah, and it's something that we have to see how this all progresses going into the new year, and how this case keeps going on. I mean, we have other, companies, you have Liberty Media trying to go and buy MotoGP to go and add to Formula One. You have other things going on, considering who's going in, in a few weeks. So, I mean, a lot going on with some of these teams and some of these series. So, have to have a lot to keep up with, but it's something that we will see if how that all shapes up. Live Fast Motorsports is going to run all the super speedways, and then the 600. Mohawk Northeast will do 3 races with Ryan Preece on the 60 car. NASCAR Hall of Famer and one of the greatest ever drivers, Fast Freddie Lorenzen, after long battle with multiple health issues, passed away at the age of 89. So condolences to the Lorenzen family. Absolute icon, drove the number 28 Ford. And I have that diecast in my room. It's one of my favorites. He was an icon, and he was one of the first fan favorites in his day. So a big loss for the NASCAR community in terms of great drivers. They're talking about the possibility of rotating the championship race, which not just going to Homestead, but it sounds like Vegas might be in play, which would actually be a progressive move, and would actually be great for the series in general. if they were to do that, because it would be, and then you could do the banquet and do all that other stuff there in Vegas. It would make a lot of sense. But that means it won't happen. Tim Brown, the all-time winningest driver at Bowman Gray Stadium, is going to be driving a Rick Ware racing car in the Clash. And so he works for Rick Ware Racing, so it's not like it would be, it's just the first time he'll be in a cup car. So, and he's been in the Cup Series as a mechanic and builder and whatnot for 35 years. So it's going to be definitely going to be interesting to see that in February, and how many of his fans will show up for that race, and be rooting for one of their own. It kind of has the feel of SRX in a sense that you have the local hero trying to compete against the big names. Of course, it was like a bunch of washed up guys, including Tony Stewart. But in this case, you're going against the best cup drivers of the day. So we'll see how Tim Brown is able to fare. Some of these smaller teams have done well in the Clash ever since it was moved. They first did it in the LA, where they have been doing it in the Coliseum, and now they'll be doing it at Bowman Gray Stadium, and it'll probably be like 14 degrees outside, but whatever. We'll see what happens with that. Going through all those news items, we got sponsor news with Liberty University won't be sponsoring Byron as much, so that's not really a loss. Ziegler Auto Group will do 8 races with Carson Hocevar. Blickensderfer continues, along with a lot of the people who were on the 10 team, and they're all moving over to Front Row Motorsports to work with Gagson. So there you go. So now it's a game. So there you go. Chris Bell returning to the Chili Bowl. Is he going to be racing? Yeah. Also, his new team proceeds to make his return to the sideline or something. If there's a bag, why? So Briscoe went and let it. He went and announced it because, as a goof, because of Chris Bell going and dropping the news that he would be that Briscoe would be taking over the 19 car, which now they finally have merch. And I went and on Circle B and bought myself T-shirts. I pre-ordered those because, of course, the hats I wasn't really so keen on, so we'll wait on that. But Chase Briscoe being a good buddy and letting everyone know that Chris Bell's going to be driving in the Chili Bowl in 2025. Of course, I think, Kyle Larson also is going to be back. So after a couple of years of guys kind of I think boycotting the race, all of a sudden all these big names are coming back. So it should be as usual, a tough show to make, the A-Main at the Chili Bowl. But we will have 2 guys who have won the race multiple times back in the mix, 2 of the best cup drivers out there. Big Machine Records with Forte Racing will be with Parker Kligerman will be running the Rolex 24. and then you have the Viking Motorsports, whatever their number's gonna be. I don't know what they're gonna be the number 99. Okay, and there'll be a Chevy team. Greg Van Alst is gonna be driving the majority of races next year for Joey Gase's team in the 35. Trackhouse Racing will be doing a deal with TF Sport in the GTD Pro category. So that will, they'll have SVG, who's moving up the Cup next year, Connor Zilic, who's driving for JRM, Scott McLaughlin, of course, the IndyCar star, and then Ben Keating, who is one of the, who, like, I have my picture up there, the Viper from years ago, winning the Rolex in GTD or whatever they called it back then. I think, and Ben Keating is like a big time dealer and a car dealer and businessman and successful businessman, and he's won World Endurance Championships now the last couple of years with Corvettes. So now he's going to be working there. One of the cars he's going to be racing at the Rolex, because he seemingly figures out a way to race in multiple cars during these races. So I think he'll be in a prototype, probably an LMP2, and then he'll race also in the GTD Pro category in that Corvette with Trackhouse. So that'll be interesting to see how that all works out. But that's a strong team there. In trucks, Jack Wood will be a full-time driver, so at least we know one person that'll bring out cautions next year in the truck series. Christian Rose, who was in ARCA, will get a ride at Nice full-time. So Tanner Gray, Jeremy Donnelly, and Derek takes over. Matt Pusha, who knew he was at Tricon? I didn't know that. I don't know who Derek Smith is, but whatever. Tricon, WME Sports, whoever. William Morris Endeavor. Oh, okay. Yeah, so they signed Raja. Okay. So that good for him there. Obviously, Mr. and Mrs. H, having him in their fold, I guess, as one of their prospects is a good thing for him as a long-term career deal. So we'll see how that all works out, but really, wow. Why do I know that name? Oh, so he's that's why. Oh, he's a faculty member. Tenure track faculty. Academic code. Is that? No take. Oh, interesting. Huh. Alrighty. Okay. But so we'll go and move over to, I lost track there. It's my fault. Connor Daly, there's news on J-Ski about how he lost his sponsorship offer or opportunity for to race in NASCAR. But now he's going to end up being in IndyCar, driving for Junkos Hollinger next year full time, and that's that's something to. I mean, he had that epic performance at um, at Milwaukee late in the season that I think uh, got him out of the situation of, I think they were going to keep their leader circle. They were able to get the leader circle deal because of that race. So Juncos, he's had great performances for Juncos over the years. He's got a good relationship with Ricardo Juncos, so it's something um, that uh, but so it's like that is a big announcement, and I think to add a little bit of stability for that organization, albeit we'd question what their overall productivity is going to be on road courses, since Connor has struggled at times in recent years on the road courses. On ovals, he's been pretty solid. That's hard to deny, no matter what car or team he's been in. And with the latter part of the season being oval heavy, that probably is a hedge towards that. I mean, granted, the charter deal is there and they're going to be around, but um, when you look at some of the competition, you have Prema in there, you have some tough teams that are out there. They're going to have a tough time early in the year if they don't start out well, or they go and have a slow start on road courses. It could be a long slog till that um, oval part of the season. But I think for popularity, IndyCar popularity, and driver popularity, it's good for the game to keep one of the more popular drivers in the sport, somebody who actually has a presence on the socials, but also has a pod that is well received and is on the Dirty Mo Media um, program there. So, I mean, Connor is a really good dude. Of course, his stepfather is, or his father is the great Derek Daly. His mom, Beth Bowles, is married to, of course, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So his stepfather is Doug Bowles. So definitely some things that are always in his favor, but Connor's worked hard. So, I mean, when you look at that, Josh, I mean, for them, I think later in the year is what they're hedging on. How they'll battle through the first part of the year, because Stingray Rob sucks. And I mean, he's basically the Ty Dillon of IndyCar, Stingray Rob, and then you have Connor, who kind of is like just he's about middle of the road and on road courses, and you're bringing in some other competition that is really tough on road courses. Yeah, there are some soft spots in the field, like his teammate, like what's his face for Ganassi, and then whoever's going to be driving for Coin, because we still don't know who's going to be driving for Coin next year. But I mean, for the popularity's sake, and for connectivity, for people, someone who actually has a following, Connor Daly staying in IndyCar full time, I think is a win for a series that seems to take a lot of L's. I mean, the latest L was with the new car that they teased to the teams, and the teams are not very happy with it, with the design or what it looked like. So now that they can at least get some positive PR, it's a good thing for them, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing for the team and for the series that a popular guy like Connor Daly is in it full time. He's not just a part time guy that has a podcast and having to kind of diversify between IndyCar and NASCAR. Now he's got a full time ride again. So, yeah, I think it's going to be tough on the road courses. I mean, he's okay. He's not great at road course racing. And of course, teammate Stingray Robb isn't either. And the oval stuff definitely half the year, like you said, at the end will favor them. But I'll be curious to see what they bring to the table at the Indianapolis 500 for them. Obviously, Connor Daly is very good at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we've seen him qualify pretty well when he's had a good car. And of course, we saw him 2021 lead the most laps in that race until he got involved with Graham Rahal's tire there. So if he's got a good piece, I mean, we could see him potentially be a contender at the 500 next year. So definitely, he'll have a presence on the ovals, and he'll definitely have an opportunity to potentially be an outside contender. We saw him, like you said, what he was able to do at Milwaukee Mile on the short oval there definitely shows his talent. We've seen him be successful qualifying at Iowa, so there's an opportunity there as well, and potentially even other tracks. Gateway, another opportunity for him to run up front in an oval. So Stingray Robb, of course, teammate there, which not a very high ceiling there. Of course, he did lead laps at the Indianapolis 500, so could happen again maybe, but we'll see how Juncos Hollinger, what in terms of pace, what they can bring to the table on oval racing, and who knows, maybe Connor will have improved somehow in road course racing and street racing, and maybe they are able to pull out some decent finishes from that part of the schedule next year. So I'm definitely glad that he's back next year in a car, and we'll see him full time.
Yeah, and I mean, we still don't know the full grid for that's a horse collar. But in terms of for Connor Daly and for the for the organization, yeah. I didn't know that he had actually drove for. Also, he, Juncos Hollinger. Who knew that? Oh, Stingray Robb. And then they have all the times I've been revealed for IndyCar for the 2025 season. We still don't know who is going to be presenting the races. And all of the practice and qualifying is actually going to be on FS1 or FS2. So that's actually a bonus. We'll see how that goes. And then, worldwide. Yeah, so then after the Indy 500, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 oval races. Okay. Yeah, so really it's based on after the first, 5 races of the season. And then, so at least Fox, there's going to be a bunch of windows, which will be on main Fox, so that'll be good. Catherine Legg can be trying to make it in the Chili Bowl Nationals. So good luck to her. It's tough. It's a tough race to make, as I said earlier, with the drivers that are experienced at it, let alone being a first timer. So hopefully things go all right for her. There, she stays safe, stays healthy. Sophia Florsch is going to Indy next in 2025, which isn't that surprising because she brings money. So that's not really, I mean, is she really going to do anything in the series? Who knows? I doubt it. Yuvan Sundaramurthy will not be able to drive for Able Motorsports. Oh, that sucks. 2026, yeah. 20 I know it's a tough decision, and just Miles Rowe was already named one of Abel's drivers. Oh, okay. So yeah. And then Callum Hedge. Hedge, yeah, will be going there. Yeah, so T development. Okay, so that sucks, losing Yuvan Sundaramurthy. So losing the Indian driver, and then getting a driver who basically she's just there because she brings money. I mean, is she as bad as what's her face last year? I don't know. What the hell's her name? I'm forgetting. From last year. Lindsay Brewer. No, but they're pretty close. The HMD Motorsports next year will have Kyle Collette, Josh Pearson, Tommy Smith, Bryce Aaron, Nolan Allaire, Haley Deegan. I forgot about that. They have two people that are in they're wasting rides but okay, so we will go on from there. A couple other pieces. Ford M Sport in the World Rally Championship after losing their main driver to Hyundai. Now will run with Gregoire Munster, who has been with the team, along with Josh McElrain. So they will race. Yeah, so he was in WRC2 Munster for second full-time season, and then 26 has been running to retain his secret. And then so he'll be in his second year. He'll be the leader of that team, Munster, and then they'll have a rookie, Adrian Formeau, of course, moving to Hyundai. And then you have, so if Toyota's going to have 4 full-time drivers, Hyundai's going to have 3 full-time drivers, and then Ford's going to have 2. So it'll be competitive. Oh, wow. That is a crazy catch. And, yeah, oh, well, okay. That is, for World Rally Championship. So we have, Monte Carlo coming up in just, 2 or 3 weeks time. So that'll be something to see what the new cars are like. No hybrids on the hybrid systems on the cars here in 2025. So we'll see if there's what kind of changes, what kind of times we'll see in that. In NHRA news, Antron Brown continues a long partnership with Matco Tools. No surprise there. Firebird Motorsports Park getting a repave. Jack Beckman announced as the full-time driver for John Force's Peak Camaro. Blake Alexander's joining the Chad Green and the Green family team, making a two-car effort there with 2 Ford Mustangs. Just going through all of that 3 days of so excuse me. Tanner Watkins, of course, who took back the whatever Open Wheels 500 or now the Hoosier 500, works for NHRA, so he was part of all these announcements. You had the 75th anniversary celebration. You had Napa becoming the official partner parts store of the NHRA. First 4-wide playoff race will be at C-Max Dragway, so that might be the opportunity for Tony to actually win a race there. And then you have Lucas Oil will continue as naming rights sponsor for IRP. And then essentially classes, pro stock, pros on schedule. You have Jack Beckman in there. Spencer Hyde, a Canadian driver, will be driving for Jim Head full-time next year. Snap-on Tools will join R&L Carriers for Josh Hart's team. So that'll be good for that team. They've lost their way for a while, but looking to come back up. So there's that for NHRA. So we'll move to NFL Week 15. I'll let Josh go first in regards to the Jags and what the fantasy situation was like for him last week.
Yeah, for me, the Jags, I mean, they played well, but still lost, and they were competitive, so that's all that matters now. Now we're, just kind of playing for draft position. I mean, it would be nice to win versus Aaron Rodgers at home, against the Jets, but that's whatever. Brian Thomas Jr., though, I will say that was the one true positive, and Brian Thomas Jr. now set the record for rookie receiving yards for the team and the Jaguars, and also rookie receiving touchdowns there, setting that record. So glad to see him making those records, and I think now has established himself as wide receiver 1 for Jacksonville. So I think they got a really good guy that will be there for years as the wide receiver on the team that can go up and get the ball and be that guy that they can force feed and get 10 touches, 10 to 15 touches a game. So looking forward to seeing what he can do the rest of the year. Hopefully he can get in the Pro Bowl or something. I don't know if he'll get Offensive Rookie of the Year, because they usually just give that to the best rookie quarterback at this point, and everything. And I definitely think there's a real case. I think he is the best wide receiver, rookie wide receiver in the NFL right now, out of all the rookie wide receivers in this draft class this year. You had Malik Neighbors, his teammate at LSU, and you had Brian Thomas. You had Lad McConkey's doing good right now. And a bunch of other wide receivers that came out of this 24 draft class, but I think Brian Thomas is probably at the top as far as the best one out of that group. So I think that's a really good draft get by Trent Baalke. I mean, I don't know if I agree with the process of how they did it, because they did a bunch of trades and they probably could have gotten him where they were originally at. But I mean, they got him. There was also talk in the draft news of the Chargers. They were, I guess, debating whether they'd get Joe Alt or Malik Neighbors, but it was really Joe Alt versus Brian Thomas Jr. there. So I think that was a really interesting nugget there of where they would have, because he possibly could have gone top 5 there with Joe Alt going top 5 for the Chargers there. So the game itself was a loss, but that's all right, and we'll figure it out. They play the Raiders, which Raiders are also bad, so we'll see what happens there. As far as fantasy goes, of course, first time not being in our playoffs though, but I did make the playoffs in one of my other leagues. And I did make, my other league, I did make the playoffs last week. Week 15. Why is that not working? Okay, yeah, week 15. Yeah, barely made it out of week 15. 5 points, 115 to 136, or 115 to 111 that I won there. Which I had solid points all around. I would have lost if my opponent had started Jared Goff in that big game against Buffalo Bills, which they lost in, but he started Mahomes over him. Texans defense performed well over Miami. Kyrie Fairburn for Houston did pretty well. Jonnu Smith somehow got points there with 1 touchdown and 9 receptions. Malik Neighbors had a big game in their blowout loss to the Ravens. Jackson Smith and Jigma had a decent game there. Isaiah Grindo had a good game. Then Brian Robinson closed it out and got the win for me. So yeah, going up this week, I'm not projected to win currently, but we'll see how this plays out. I do have Justin Herbert on the bench right now, which kind of regretting, but Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are going up against the Panthers, so that's probably going to be because the Panthers aren't really that good of a team right now, and they have a bad defense, so that might be a huge fantasy game for Kyler Murray there. So now in round 2 in this league, so we'll see if I can win here and go to the finals against my coworkers. So at least it'll be interesting to have that and everything. And then our league, we'll see. Trying to see if I can get out of last place, and I'm in 9th place right now. So trying to finish in 7th, I guess, for the year. So we'll see if we can pull that out. So with DJ Moore and CJ Stroud playing on Saturday, Derrick Henry playing on Saturday against the Steelers. And Derwin James right now should have had an interception. I think there was a play earlier in the game where Derwin James was tackling a guy, and I think he really came up with the ball, but they gave because I think it was a tie, and they gave it to the receiver on the Broncos there. So, but I think that ended up being a punt anyways. But I think he should have had a pick there on that one. So, we'll see this week how it goes fantasy, and if I can get to the championship in my other league. So, the rest of the season, it doesn't, as far as the team goes, it doesn't really matter. So, kind of just wanting to see individual players pop off and have their moment in the on the highlight reel.
And I think it's similar for the 49ers now. They suspended Devondre Campbell for the rest of the season after he decided to not go into the game last Thursday, and pissed off a lot of the veteran players on the team that have been there a long time, especially with the fact that Dre Greenlaw made his return. So, fuck Devondre Campbell. You're you're Judas, and so I don't know where the hell he's gonna get a job. Probably with the Raiders or some crappy organization, probably the Jets or the Giants or something that has a bad organization, because you don't keep those kind of people. They should have just cut them, but I guess they have liabilities in terms of contracts and stuff, and they didn't want to take that hit, I guess. So, but when you consider that the season's a lost season, they're not competing for anything of value. What is the point of keeping him? I really don't understand, but they'll be going against Miami this coming weekend, and then they will play the Lions, which is that is gonna fucking suck. I thought about that game, these games, the Miami game in Miami, and then 8 days later going and playing against the Lions at home. The Lions being one of the best teams in the NFL, even with their loss to Buffalo. This Miami game is gonna be probably gonna be a disaster. I don't see very much good coming out of it. Garendo's out already, so Phil Taylor, or Patrick Taylor, Phil Taylor. I'm making the legendary darts thrower our running back now. I tried to bring OJ back from the dead last week. Now I'm trying to go and make a darts thrower our running back. So I'm really running well with that. Yeah, they suck. They're done. At this point, I just want them to finish. I want them to finish in 4th place in the division so they can get that last place schedule for next year. So, because the division is pretty soft, there's not really any team that's like amazing. So I think with some good moves, they're going to have to do some creativity with the cap. But if they can do that and sign Brock to the long-term deal, we'll see what happens next year. I mean, the NFC North is loaded right now. The Eagles are really good. Commanders have a quarterback, and they have a coach now, and a GM. Of course, the Niners should have kept him, but that's a whole other story. But they're just running out the string these next 3 games. I think basically that game against the Cardinals is going to be for that last place spot in the division. But whatever. In fantasy, I was in the consolation bracket in the league that I didn't get to draft. And I didn't go scorched earth. I think I ended up losing anyway. I don't remember what the heck it was. I can go and tell you. Yeah, so last week, I ended up losing in week 15, so knocked myself out of a possible playoff spot. So now I'm in the consolation bracket playing the 6th place team. So I try not to finish last, or we're not going to finish last. I guess the worst I can finish is 8th, but it doesn't really matter much. Then in my other leagues, in the sleeper league, we're the number one seed, so we had a bye last week. Now we're trying to get across the line and go and get to the semifinals, or get to the finals and possibly win the league after never making the playoffs in that league. Having to rely on Kermit the Frog, though. He injured his ankle last week in that game, so now there's concerns. The Saturday game also doesn't play very well for people who have him. And so we'll see what happens there. I mean, we have some concerns to fade there. I mean, playing Kermit the Frog, and then we have Cortland Sutton hasn't done anything much today, which is disappointing considering how bad the Chargers defense has been. Keep on calling him San Diego. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, the team is really solid, though. It'd be a tough team to beat. Four verticals, Alpha Particle. He's the commissioner of the league, so yeah. Vote. Yeah, so so I just voted on that. And then in terms of the other two teams, I have won last week to advance into the semifinals, going against the second place team, and up against it at the moment, based on what we have in terms of projections. Yeah, so that it's gonna be hard to get through there. Pacheco hasn't been playing great. I left Ladd McConkey on the bench, and he has 6 for 87 yards there. Have Jerome Ford, and I had to swap out Pickens because he's out again. AJ Brown there, and then Lamar Jackson playing against Pittsburgh, which is never a good thing in a big spot. So my chance to hold on to my championship in that league could be over after the semifinal round. And then in my league, where I had the number one overall seed, and I still owe Wilson the rundown of the payouts because I haven't sat here and went through it. And when I'm sitting here probably on, that is just a really bad sack. I mean, that is atrocious. Right now we get into the championship bracket, and I'm playing against Luke, who probably has one of the worst. It's one of the worst teams I've ever seen that has made it, but you get yourself in a position, right? So that's what really matters. Then Steve is his second place, so it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out battle between Steve and Joe. So that'll be a really good matchup. If I can advance, trying to win for the first time in 10 years, if I can somehow or another do that, Ladd McConkey, playing him in my league and solid performance for him. I picked up Jalen McMillan, Jamison Williams, Kendre Miller, Jalen McMillan, Mason Rudolph, and then I made defensive changes. Ugo Amadi from New Orleans. Kept my defensive lineman Leonard Williams, and then also Dayon Henley, who right now has 5 solo tackles and then 2 assists with a tackle for loss right now. So hopefully he can get some more plays here, or didn't get that play. Derwin James got it. So see what happens, and we'll let everybody know when we come back next in 2025 if I came through with the dub. So we will move forward to the Cup Series review. I mean, keep it simple here. I think the main thing is Hendrick and Gibbs were dominant per usual. The Gen 7 car had its issues again. But when push came to shove, Joey Logano yet again proved why he's one of the best drivers of his generation. And to think that 12 years ago he was dumped out the side by Gibbs, and now he's a 3-time Cup Series champion. Now, granted, Mark Martin said he was the best thing since sliced bread, and he was right. His evaluation, he evaluated 2 guys that we know of for sure, and the freaking their career statistics are pretty strong. Of course, one of them tried to run over the one guy tried to run over Joey Logano, or did run over Joey Logano years ago and basically ended his career. But yeah, I mean, I guess in the takeaway is, well, Joey Logano played the system to a T, and he understands the system probably better than anybody else. Getting yourself through, benefiting from a Hendrick DQ with Alex Bowman, then promptly going out, winning a fuel mileage race at Vegas to give himself an opportunity at Phoenix, and then going out at Phoenix and winning the race. Blaney was right there trying to repeat, and Christopher Bell, who ended up losing out on the opportunity to make the championship 4 again with that Vegas race, ends up missing it, and then was left to wonder, because he was fast. He was one of the best drivers all year last year. Blaney was another one, but in the grand scheme, Joey Logano played the cards, played the game, and was able to, with Paul Wolf, go and get a 3rd championship and put himself into into some pretty heady territory with the guy he replaced when he became a Cup Series driver, Tony Stewart, in a time when Tony Stewart is leaving the sport. Another guy who was connected in a way to Tony Stewart ends up adding to his what will be a Hall of Fame legacy here in 2024, Josh.
Yeah, Joe Logano just was able to be good at certain tracks and certain moments, and that we've kind of established that as it is currently, the playoff system is rewards being good in clutch moments rather than total consistency, and that's one of the reasons why Joey Logano is the champion, and why Kyle Larson didn't make it into the championship 4 despite having probably a more objectively successful season in terms of statistics and wins than Joey Logano. But Joey Logano was able to play the cards right and able to go win a couple races to get into the playoffs, and then he was able to play the strategy and get into the championship. And I mean, obviously, a huge benefit of that was the win, or not the win, but the penalty to Alex Bowman that took him out and put Joey Logano in. So there was, I think that was obviously a huge factor in allowing him in, because if Bowman, makes it through that race okay and doesn't get disqualified, then we're not talking about Joey Logano winning the championship ever in that scenario. So, for and watching the game here, but for Logano, they not only the clutch moment, but I think it also helps that Ford has something when it comes to the flat tracks. We saw what they were able to do at Gateway. Ryan Blaney was dominant in that race. Logano was in that race too, and then Austin Cindric was there and ended up having the opportunity to win that. And we've seen in the past Ford be good at Phoenix, in May or in March, and then they come back in November and one of the Ford teams is there with an opportunity to win the race. So as long as Ford has a package that's good at the tracks that they need to be good at, then I think we're going to continue to see a Penske car or another Ford car in, maybe an RFK car could be in the playoffs in that championship for next year. So as long as that the format is what it is, I mean, it's going to continue to reward those moments where you can be clutch, like Logano was at Nashville, in terms of being able to hold on and survive the multiple restarts and all that stuff, rather than outright consistency like maybe we would expect from a Larson or a Bell in this series. So clearly they figured something out, and I think it'll continue to be the case. And of course, you mentioned Hendrick and Gibbs total domination. Ford struggled for the first third of the year here in this season, but I think now that Ford, they've got a full season under the dark horse. I think that may have been part of their struggles early on there. So now they've got that opportunity now to have a full season of development. Can they be competitive out of the gate? I think that's a big question for Ford. And on the other end, Chevy and Toyota, what do they do to counter Ford? So the typical domination there throughout the season for Hendrick and Gibbs and everything. But at the end of the day, it's just gonna come down to who can figure out the aero package and continue to evolve with the next gen car, and who can gain that advantage. So I do think at the end of the day, Joey Logano, it's mind-boggling that he scored the 16th most points but still won the title. But at the end of the day, Ford, Penske, they're may not have the best cars, they didn't have the best cars throughout the entire season, but they're the most prepared. That's the ethos at Team Penske, and they know how to get it done when it matters.
And that's what you need to do. And Joey Logano and Paul Wolf have been at this a long time together, and it makes me wonder when they made that change, because Brad and Paul had been a great combination, won an Xfinity championship, or back then it was nationwide, and then won a Cup Series championship. And what could have been, how much more they could have done together. But I mean, it's amazing to think what the Logano and Penske have been able to do. They get 1-2 in points. Cindric finishes 11th in points at the end of the year. So you consider where they were at the start of the playoff, and then you get 3 of the top 11 in points by the end. That is really great job and they were surrounded by Hendrick and Gibbs and Hendrick and Toyotas um, around or in front of them or around them, from position 3 all the way down to 10th was all either Toyotas or Hendrick guys. Mostly all the Gibbs guys, or 3 of the Gibbs guys plus Tyler Reddick, all 4 Hendrick drivers there. So in I think obviously for me, bias aside, for me the end of Stewart Haas racing was definitely disappointing as a fan. Briscoe leaving Ford to go to Toyota, just the whole thing dissolving. Mahindra losing Mahindra out of the sport, High Point out of the sport, amongst other sponsors. But I think in the grand scheme, a good amount of the main people that worked at that organization were able to land on their feet. All 4 drivers will continue in the sport. 3 of them are staying with Ford, albeit all 3 different teams. Josh Berry going to the Woods, so driving for Penske affiliate. Front Row Motorsports is also a Penske affiliate, and they have Gagson, and then you have Roush RFK with Ryan Preece expanding to 3 cars next year. So for the drivers, I think in the net, it probably is a net positive, because I think in all of their cases, that's an illegal pass. Yeah. And then, but in terms of Ross leaving, I think it's a shame losing a championship team, or what was a championship team at some point. I look at, other disappointments. I would say there's 4 guys, the first 4 guys that missed the playoffs. I think as a whole, you have Ross Chastain, who has been second in the points a couple of years ago. You have Kyle Busch, who's Kyle Busch. No matter the fact that now he's basically an also-ran driving for a, dipshit who supports rapists, but Kyle Busch is one of the greatest ever, and now he's like basically on the back end of his career, and it looks like he's leaking oil. You have Chris Buescher, who has been a winner in the series last year. He won in 2023. He won multiple races in the summer to get himself into the playoffs. And then you have Darrell Wallace Jr., who in a lot of ways had his best season, but didn't have the results to show for his productivity. And so I think those guys, those 4 teams and drivers, definitely that's a disappointment because of the potential that they had, especially on the 17 and the 23 side. Chastain was wildly inconsistent last year. The Trackhouse team looked like they had fallen behind, and outside of that miracle win for Suarez and a decent performance late in the season, Trackhouse was not very good last year. So curious to see what happens with them. I think one other disappointing factor, I would say, was Legacy joining Toyota, and it looked like they took 3 steps backwards. If it was possible for them to run worse than they were as a Chevy affiliate, they did it last year with Toyota. I mean, Johnson, every time he jumps in a car, he wrecks. And he's a 7-time Cup Series champion. He looks like Richard Petty did at the end of his career. You know, and you have Eric Jones, who's a Cup winner, who's won the Southern 500 twice, and he's like holding on for dear life. And then you have John Hunter Nemechek bringing out cautions every week, or most weeks. So it's like, what are we doing here? I know it's the old Petty Enterprises. I know Maury Gallagher's, but it's got more feeling. SHR closing, they were basically on the brink for a few years. You have one owner whose wife is a drag racer, and he had decided he wanted to be a drag racer, and his mind and focus is on that and making a family. And then you have another owner who's more obsessed with being in Formula One, and in that, then you have nobody that's really interested. So that's what happens. There are some similarities to the team at Legacy, because Jimmy is in Europe, spending a lot of time with the Franchitti brothers and other people in that realm. So is he really connected to the team? Is he really understanding what he needs to do? And then forget the driving part. The driving part's a whole separate issue. Is he really helping his own organization by driving a third car? When he runs terrible every single race he goes out there. And then what do they do this year? I mean, I think it's going to be a key season. Eric Jones, of course, now father. John Hunter trying to establish himself as a Cup Series regular in his second year with this organization, third year in Cup total. Because if it doesn't work this time, he may end up like Hemrick, and end up in the Truck Series. So that's something. I mean, the difference is Hemrick hasn't really sniffed any type of success in Cup, and I mean, so I guess that's the same thing for John Hunter, but he's younger. So, did you have anybody else that you thought was a disappointment, or do you agree with those? And then we can move into Hocevar, and then other things that stood out to you for the season, Josh.
Just to add on to what you said about Legacy there, because last year, yeah, in 2023, they were not good, and we thought, coming out of 2022, Eric Jones had a decent standing. He won the Southern 500, and they were outside, a dark horse in a lot of races in 2022, and we thought that they'd take a step and be a contender in 2023, but then they took a step back. Eric Jones performed terrible compared to the year before, and then this year with Toyota, they didn't perform that much better than what they did the year before. So, and honestly, it was not too much of a difference in the 42 between the two drivers that they had in that car with Ty Dillon and John Hunter Nemechek, which I think we both can agree John Hunter Nemechek's a way better driver than Ty Dillon, but they performed pretty similar, to be honest, in that 42 car. And Noah Gragson performed there as well in that 42 car in 2023. So not really a difference there. So which I forgot about. I forgot Noah Gragson was on the Legacy Motor Club in 23, but not a huge difference, honestly, at this point. So what do you do? And Jimmy Johnson, I don't know if he should continue driving. I mean, maybe if he wants to do the Daytona 500, that's fine, because there isn't really much input there as far as like the technique of the next gen goes, although it does super speedway racing with the next gen is a lot different than the Gen 6 car. So I don't know, but we've seen the struggles there with Jimmy, because the old car and all previous generations you drove off the right rear, and that's what Jimmy knows. And then now this car is like you're more driving off the feeling of the right front, and so it's a completely different scenario for him. And he's at a point where he's doing this not full time, and obviously, like you said, he's in Europe a lot, because I think after the deal with his family, with what happened, I think they moved to Europe, and everything, and he lives in England now. So now when he's over, he's not there full time in Charlotte or anything for the team, and then he's only coming in every now and then to race. So I don't know if it's worth it for Jimmy. And I think we both like Jimmy, but I think it's probably just time to basically hang it up and call it, which we thought he was calling it at the end of 2020, and then doing the IndyCar thing, which wasn't that great. He's looking more like Jimmy Johnson, the IndyCar driver right now, and competing in his full-time or part-time effort NASCAR than he looking like Jimmy Johnson, the NASCAR driver from 2002 to 2020. So it's disappointing for Legacy, and I guess we'll see if they make any improvements to be more competitive next year. So I don't really have much more than that. I mean, I guess other disappointments. I mean, Stenhouse, of course. I mean, I don't think anybody expect him to actually make the playoffs, but I guess considering, I mean, they were a playoff team last year by virtue of winning the Daytona 500. Excuse me, and they're always a threat on super speedways. So I thought maybe Stenhouse might have done a little bit better than what he was able to. I mean, he still won a super speedway race, but I thought maybe that they would have a little bit more improvement this year to be more competitive on other tracks. But they basically performed the same. So we'll see how that goes. But I think for me, those are probably the most disappointing efforts there.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of want to go and take that disappointing piece, and not because it was disappointing that Carson Hocevar won the Rookie of the Year, but I think the rookie class, it was a disappointment, because I think a lot of us thought, including me, that Josh Berry was going to win Rookie of the Year, and it didn't work out. But then there was any number of things you want to add to the mix for why that didn't go off. With him and Rodney Childers, you consider the Stewart-Haas team folding, sponsorship issues, et cetera. Trying to go and make race as a rookie in a Cup Series in a car that was foreign to Barry compared to being in them Hendrick cars and having great equipment. Hocevar won Rookie of the Year. He was the best rookie, of course, obviously, but he also, I think, hit everything but the lottery, and continued the trend, or continued that narrative about what kind of driver he is. And it's like, at some point you have to learn that you're not invincible. You can't just drive over or drive through everybody. and think it's going to work. And considering how dangerous these cars are, driving like that, Kurt Busch got knocked out of the series and retired because of injury from a hit that didn't seem all that severe. Yes, they made changes to the car, but it's like, when is he going to learn how to drive around other drivers? He's got like the same syndrome as fish lips in terms of actually having to drive around somebody and compete. Somebody who has a lot of talent and potential, he drives like a moron a lot of the time. And you think of McDowell going into that team next year. You have Haley going in for a full season. What can you expect from that organization? They're trying to go and take a major step forward, and they need Hocevar to actually be focused on the bottom line and not trying to send everybody to the moon. The Gen 7 car problems aside, I think some of the intrigue for me comes from the changes that are coming in 2025 with some of the races they're adding or adjusting. You have the schedule. With the schedule. Then you have the TV deal and, Dale Jr. being back next year with Adam Alexander as a lead announcer, and then they'll have Letard in there in the booth. Not sure who they're going to have on pit road. I know Matt Yoakum seems to post a lot on social media. I think he'd be a great get for the limited races they have, and launch that into the stratosphere. And San Diego, LA Chargers of Anaheim get a win there. So big win for Jim Harbaugh and that team and division, and putting Denver in a tough spot to try and make the playoffs. The car itself, I don't know what they're going to change. It sounds like they're working towards a Gen 8 car. Not sure how much changes are really going to come from that. GM doesn't really know what manufacturer they're going to run with, or what car they're going to be running with after 2025. So that's a whole other thing to be looking at. And so, that's what I take away from 2025 or 2024, hoping for better things, better days ahead, knowing that both of my drivers drive for one manufacturer, or like my favorite drivers. I guess three of my favorite drivers now, they all drive for one manufacturer. So, but, we'll see what happens in 2025 with these teams and these drivers, and what happens with how they perform accordingly. I am going to pass on the wishes part, and we'll go to your sim segment, Josh. Let us know how the Freedom 100 went for you, and everything else going on in the world of iRacing and gaming.
Yeah, for me, Freedom 100, pretty good in terms of, the heat race. Started 29th in the heat race, finished in 6th. So I don't know how I got through that heat race, to be honest, because I was doing okay. I was, got up to the transfer spot, but the top 13 would make the race. But then I got into a couple of incidents and used up my fast repair allotment, and then from there I fell a lap down because I had to take a repair and get towed because I got turned upside down in the car. and then wait for the pair, fall lap down on the ensuing caution, but then somehow I got my lap back later on, and we had multiple green white checkers, and I think there was debate among the other sim racers in the lobby that were in there. It's like, oh, what, like, why are we giving guys that are already a lap down their lap back? And it's basically like giving a free pass to the whole field, basically. And I don't know how that happened, but then it's basically just like, just place your car in the right spot and hope for something to happen. And I was able to drive my way through all the carnage and somehow make my way up through and into the transfer spot and everything. So once we got up to in well within the top 13, it's like, well, on the last lap, you don't really need to push any further to try to win and all that. You don't really have to risk anything and everything, because I already was in well within that top 13. So yeah, 6th place there. So made it into the feature on the Freedom 100, and then my strategy, of course, you had 2 free faster pairs there in the feature as well, and was trying to maintain pace with the field and then hope for more wrecks throughout and survive and make it to the end and then try to make a move. I didn't really work out because I think I was at other points just trying to push to the front, taking the temptation to push to the front. And then there was one, I ran into the back of Christopher DeHardy. He's a reporter, one of the IndyCar journalists. He was doing this race as well. I think I ran into the back of him, and then I think I had to take a repair during that. So kind of used up my faster pairs, and then last lap, just took the outside line, very top line, trying to make something happen there, and tried to push, but then lost momentum on the backstretch, and then David Land put me in a spot. Like, I think he just like went for a gap and tried and took it, but then like 2 cars in front of him touched and they crashed, and then I got caught up into it and then turned upside down with another guy. So that was the end of that on the last lap there. So I think finished like 22nd or whatever, but it's fine. It's whatever. I mean, we got to run in that and compete in that. Did cause one caution that did get somebody upside down, but that was also because I got contacted on the restart very, very slightly, and that caused me to get loose and get up into another guy. So, and then that was the other incident that I had to take the repair on, because the wheels were knocked out of alignment. They were knocked out of tow. So took the repair there, and then when, like I said, ran into the back of the Hardy there. So yeah, that was a pretty fun deal there. And then of course make it in onto the broadcast YouTube for a main event there. So hey, the logo's on the car there for us, so glad that we got on that and being able to run that. Definitely wish Tony Stewart was there in that. Of course, like I said, he had a obligation there that came up last minute. He was going to compete in this race, but then one of the organizers said Tony isn't going to be able to make it. Last minute sponsorship appearance in Nashville, so he had to go to that. But he did say he was, genuinely excited. Tony was genuinely excited to compete in this race, and he was, felt really bad for having to cancel. And said he was like, "Oh, when's the next one? I'm definitely in." So for that, whenever it happens. So I don't know if he meant like an official one, or because I think some people were just talking about, yeah, let's just do one where we don't broadcast it or anything, but we'll just invite Tony to hop in, just for fun and compete. So we'll see if that happens. I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but it'd be fun to see Tony hop in and join all the carnage and everything, and just go flat out in a Indy Pro 2000 car, which top speed of like 165 on its own, and then in the draft you get up to like 170. So it's interesting and a lot of fun there. So did did stream that, of course, on that, which you can replay for however long it lasts there. So yeah, let's see, Freedom 100, where did I finish? Yeah, finished in 26th. So yeah, I didn't finish the last lap there, which it's always a crazy ending there. How I think 3 wide ending there, like the old Freedom 100, which yeah, this is supposed to raise awareness for the old Freedom 100, which went away during COVID, and the Indy NXT series, which yeah, a lot of great finishes over the years, trying to bring awareness, bring it back. But also, I think the other half of it was raising money for charity. So I think they did. There, I don't know how much money was raised for that, but I think just donations, proceeds from that go to charity. So good for that as well. So, yeah, I streamed that, which of course you can find on Twitch TV, on YouTube, or not on YouTube, but on uSailor2. Go on there. Gonna stream maybe throughout the beginning of the year or the end of the year, whatever, when I have time. So we'll see how much time I have. Of course, do spend holiday time, family time, of course. So we'll see how much there is of that. Maybe trying to get into the Rolex 24 for Daytona. We'll see. Might try to do the iRacing 24 hours Daytona. Got to figure something out for that. Make arrangements. But definitely interested in that. So looking forward to next year iRacing with all the content and stuff that's coming out there. So yeah, like I said, Twitch TV, uSailor2 on there, and then of course JP Huff on my Twitter, which talking about all the racing stuff on there, post photography on there as well sometimes, and other stuff. But looking forward, talking about the off season on there as well, and following the storylines in there. So you can follow me on there, and of course YouTube page at Gripshire Podcast for our show there. You should go and watch and subscribe to our content there. So yeah, glad to be back. Another episode 250, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody listening to this, watching. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I mean, as we end 2024 and season 5 here of the GSP, it's crazy to think how much has gone on in a year. And in the world of racing, but just in life, and how you have to just kind of roll with the punches, good, bad, or indifferent. And for 5 years, it's been a passion project for both myself and for Josh. And we have it out, we have our YouTube page, we have our Twitter feed, we have pages like my website, philipgmatthew.com, but it's out there. It's something we do as fun, to go and just shoot the breeze, talk about racing, talk about football, talk about sports. And it's something that now that a few weeks away from being a man, becoming 40, as Mike Gundy, legend, was once said, and I'm gonna be that for Halloween for sure. I'm gonna dress like Mike Gundy, and I'm gonna be doing that whole speech. I'm gonna memorize that. That's part of my 2025 resolution. I'm gonna memorize that whole entire press conference, and I'm gonna recite it at some point. Probably will be on here, but I mean, for all the people that were able to come on the show and contribute, for all the interviews, and for all the time we spent in terms of talking about this passion that we have for racing, and all the experiences we're able to have. I mean, Josh, you're being able to drive in real life in terms of go-karts and doing the sim stuff, but then also Cannonball running it, which is all-time epic story that you'll be able to tell your kids or whatever. And for me, making this going and making this transition job wise, and now being in a leadership role, but then also having this passion, being able to continue this, it means a lot. And we're going to continue it, and we're going to keep on going with it. Season 6 into 2025, and look forward to a lot of the things coming along. For me as a fan, Briscoe going to Gibbs. You have Lewis going to Ferrari. IndyCar on network TV every single race. The guy who's the most popular driver, but the guy who runs the series doesn't even act like he exists. Probably going to be sticking it to him all year. That'll be good. Plenty of things to look forward to, and just grateful to everyone that listens, and grateful to you, Josh. You're one of my bros, and we've been able to build this, and we're going to continue to do this, and it's just fun to do it. And so thanks to you, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, a whole bit to you and your family, and to everybody listens here on the GSP. You can find us on the social, on Blue Sky, on Insta, on X, whatever, and so and follow, like, subscribe, and with that, for Josh, I'm Phil, and thank you for being a part of our journey on 250 episodes, and we will see y'all in 2025.